Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Doug. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Wow. This is such a great night, and we appreciate everybody being here. Tom is one of the greatest people. I met his family and his son earlier. He's telling wonderful stories about coming to the Lake Theater years ago, way back in the 70s when he was a child.
Mm-hmm. This is the first theater where I saw hair.
That's really cool. Mm-hmm. Well, before we get into your career and discuss some of the things that everybody's so excited to know about your new book, Ronan Boyle and the Bridge of Riddles, which is for sale in the lobby afterwards. You can have him sign it. It's a wonderful experience. It's the first of a series about a 14-year-old that he says is based upon himself.
It's based on me. It made the New York Times bestseller list, Doug. Did I tell you that?
No. Yeah. That is really exciting.
Kids, especially Irish kids out there, I want you to know when you make the New York Times bestseller list, do you know what it feels like? Any guesses? Nothing. It feels like that. Because you're still Irish and you still can. No.
It's so exciting. Well, Tom is definitely a native son. He was born at Oak Park Hospital, 1970. So if you do the math in your head, you can figure out how old he is. He went to Mann School, was it?
I started at Mann, and then I went to Hawthorne. Mann School.
Mann and Hawthorne, which is now Percy Julian. Then he went to OPRF and was active in the theater program there. I guess your first role was actually in You Can't Take It With You?
My first role, so Lena Rosen, are you here? No. My friend Lena Rosen, I'd been recruited my first day at OPRF very early on because I'm really, really little, but surprisingly strong. And there was a gym teacher, John Fournier, maybe you remember his name, Crazy Legs Eddie. Does anybody remember Crazy Legs Eddie, the gym teacher? Yes, yeah, Crazy Eddie. Crazy Eddie, Chicken Legs Eddie. He was like, kid, look, you're going to be my star pole vaulter. Because you're the dream pole vaulter. For pole vaulting, I guess, Doug, you got to be, they want you small and real strong. And I was on my way to pole vaulting, and then Lena Rosen said, come audition for You Can't Take It With You, which I did, and then I was put in a group with Ann Hartman, who was the big star of Oak Park at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. And I ended up getting cast as Mr. DePina. I had one line.
Mr. DePina, he's the one with the fireworks in the basement.
He lives in the basement.
Yeah.
He says, to my knowledge, he says one or maybe two sentences total.
Yeah.
Patty Cheney, who's right here. I just saw you, Patty. Patty did my makeup. I believe I had a bald cap. Yeah, I had a terrific bald cap and some good wrinkles and stuff, yeah.
Patty, do you remember him as a kid? What was he like?
About the same as he is now.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
By which Patty means a delight. Thanks, Patty.
And then at the same time, while you were in your high school years, you began doing some community work. I remember seeing you as Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream at the old Village Players.
To anybody that saw me as Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream at the Village Players, Ann Sugg, thank you so much. There's a character in my book based on Ann Sugg. We'll get into that in a minute. But I apologize. Laurel Cronin thought it would be an amazing idea. She was a great teacher and mentor of mine, a great actress in her own right. And for some reason, she thought that I should do Puck at the Village Players in a gold lame Speedo. And I forgot until tonight that the show would open. Doug, do you remember this? I came out, I would run up the log.
You ran across a tree.
I ran up the tree, and then I would swing on a rope out over the audience, basically nude.
Yeah.
Like a nude 15-year-old boy, and then I would hopefully not fall into the audience. I don't think they would do that these days.
No, they definitely would. But I can remember, I'm so old, I was reviewing already then in the local paper. And there I was watching this, and I'm, oh my God, they've got somebody's poor teenage son in danger, swinging out over the house.
Yep.
It's really fascinating.
The only bummer is, Doug, and I have to bring this up because my dad mentions it a lot. So I played Puck at 15 in a like a Rocky Horror Picture Show Speedo, swinging on a rope over the audience. Almost died many nights. Didn't have a driver's license, but my dad still says that Stanley Tucci is his favorite Puck of all time. So
from the movie,
I mean, welcome to my world, guys. You can never, no matter how many times you almost die at the Village Players, you're playing catch up with Tucci.
Folks, how were they in terms? I always hear stories about people who go into show business and acting and whatever. The arts are sort of make parents nervous. Were they good with this?
That was far from the case with my parents. My mother was a drama major at Clark. My dad was an art major at Loras, and then also went to Notre Dame. And then my dad worked at the Art Institute of Chicago for about 45 years, maybe more. Oh my gosh, hey. And so, and also they took me to every play that they ever went to growing up. We went to the Victory Gardens all the time, and we went to we would go to Second City. We would go to the Goodman so many times that I'd memorized what it said over the stage at the old Goodman. Yeah,
faggots.
The faggots that you bring here. When we used to, that was word used to mean
know,
something
every
else.
time you'd read it, you'd cringe.
It meant sticks. Yeah,
it meant sticks.
Yeah,
when they.
And it was a. So we saw every play you could ever see. We would also go see every play of the Village Players we could see. Mm-hmm. And when I was a kid, Dr. Peter Baker, our pediatrician. Did anybody else go to Dr. Baker? Yeah.
I didn't go, my kids did.
He was one of the best pediatricians you could go to, and then once a year, he would scare the crap out of you and play Marley, the ghost of Jacob Marley at the Village Players.
Complete with all the ledgers chained to him.
The chains that he forged in life. So I grew up in Oak Park, and then John Frenier was one of my best friends, musical genius, and it always seemed to me like a totally normal job would be to be an actor. You know, like that would be like a normal thing you could do. You could either like paint or act or play music. And those were like the things that Oak Park, at least in Oak Park, and novel writing, which I came to later, those were the things that Oak Park celebrated the most. And
Do you have, you grew up in the period of the 70s and 80s. Do you have memories of specific things in Oak Park that you're fond of or didn't like so well, perhaps?
I always loved growing up in Oak Park. It was just, there were no really fences in the backyard. We lived at Forest and Division, and we lived next to a big family called the Cipperonis. Are any Cipperonis here? So many Cipperonis. Oh, all the Cipperonis are here. There's a lot of Cipperonis here. It's you could vote on something and pass it tonight if you needed to. Whitey Nyko, hi, nice to see you. But Oak Park was a joyous place to grow up. The schools were the best schools you could go to. I walked to school every day, and it was like fun and easy. I went to Mann, and then I went to Hawthorne, where I learned about knife fights and things like that. It got a little more exciting. Brendan got in a knife. There was a kid who wanted to start a knife fight with Brendan, my cousin, like third day of Hawthorne. So I had to like stop a knife fight. And I was like, hey, sometimes you learn how to do that at 12. Yeah. And then at the high school at OPRF, OPRF had a better theater program than most colleges in America.
It still does.
Even still, yeah. So my time at Oak Park, I was in more plays than I've ever been in. I directed a play by, I don't know what was happening at Oak Park, but they let me direct the Sam Shepard play Savage Love upstairs in the black box. So if you have any guess of did I take myself too seriously as a kid? I was like, well, I just turned 15. I think I should start directing Sam Shepard plays because that's a good fit. But I was in everything I could be in there. I was on the speech team. I got a major letter on the speech team, as you know. And it made me very tough. Yeah.
Just chatting with you a little bit during dinner, you have all these, from that period, you have merit badges, you were constantly busy, and you still are. Have you always been a person where you're writing a book while you're doing TV and movies, and you seem to be able to just accomplish so much?
Doug, it's so interesting you say that, because I have done a lot of things, and I've written a lot of movies, and now I wrote a book. And it seems like I'm doing things all the time, but I think that comes out of a fear that in some way I might be very lazy. Like ultimately, if left to my own devices, I don't know how motivated I would be. But then there's this overwhelming fear, and then I feel like, I need to do everything I can possibly do. Yeah.
Yeah. When you come back to Oak Park now, I mean, I live here still, and oh my God, there's another skyscraper I didn't see the other day. Are there things that just jar you?
Of course. They built a new high-rise where Tasty Dog was.
Oh.
And
don't mess with our hot dog.
Yeah. So what the people that are going to move into this apartment building, what they don't know is I'm going to haunt them like Jacob Marley, with chains of hot dogs around me, saying, "I wear the dogs I forged in life." No, I miss Tasty Dog, but Oak Park, this is a fun story one thing about Oak Park that has really never changed is the Lake Theater, which has been so great. We have my dad, Tim Lennon, who's there somewhere, right in the back, made me, above the TV in our living room, he made me a marquee of the Lake Theater that lights up. And he put the names of films that I've been in or wrote up on the marquee, which was really sweet. But also, a funny story, Oliver Lennon, my son, can you stand up? There he is. So next to Ollie is my wife, Jenny, and the first place I ever saw Jenny Lennon in my life was this screen in this room when I saw Bull Durham. And Jenny, of course, plays Millie in Bull Durham. And that was a rough moment because she's kind of making out with Tim Robbins, which is, it takes a long time to get over that. And then you become friends with Tim, and Tim's 6'5", and he's got Oscars, and he's lovely. Anyway, luckily it's on 6 times a week. Yeah.
Well, let me just say one thing before I forget it. Earlier today, Tom voluntarily said he would give his Lieutenant Dangle costume on a mannequin to the Historical Society. So that will, if you have not yet been to our new History Museum, which is an 1898 firehouse, it's been refurbished with painstaking love and affection.
It's
that will
magnificent.
be an upcoming event. We'll have the Dangle.
It's the real outfit. I'm not sure what other museum would take it, so that's... But, of course, the ostrich boots from Zabatarila La Bayra Arena. I got the whole rig, yes. Yeah.
How did you segue from Oak Park? There's so many young people, I think, that are in Oak Park that would perhaps like to take some sort of a path into acting or comedy. You went off to New York University, and that was your kickstart?
No, that was a lucky turn of events, but I didn't really know. All I really thought was that I would be like a really serious actor. And I applied to Northwestern, which was my #1 pick, and I got a firm no. Yeah, Northwestern couldn't say no to me fast enough.
They're lost.
Yeah, that's all right. It's a beautiful place. But so then I had applied to NYU, and you could audition for NYU, which helped me because my grades my junior year at Oak Park were not good. So NYU accepted me off my audition and told me if you get 1 C, you're kicked out of school, which was a great motivation. It really kept me sharp. So got to NYU. And was at the Tisch School of the Arts, and I ended up quitting the drama school, and I went to the film school. But my first week at NYU, I met Michael Ian Black, who's in many of these sketches with me, David Wayne, Ken Marino, Joe Lo Truglio, Kerry Kenny, Ben Garant, who I've now written 12 or 14 feature films with. So the people that I made friends with August of 1988, we still work together almost every day.
That's really great. And then what happened?
So we did. This was interesting. We were a comedy group. We were a really aggressive comedy group. We thought of ourselves as like a punk band, and we would play any job that we could get. So one time we opened for the ska band, the Toasters. Many of the gigs that we did as a comedy group, there would be a drum kit on stage that we had to like work around, and we were just relentless. We pitched ourselves. There was an MTV show that they were doing called "You Wrote It, You Watch It." This would be about 1992. And David Wayne, one of the members of the group, had been an intern, and he pitched over and over again. He's like, "Hey, please hire my group. We'll do some sketches. We'll do some sketches." And we got a firm no, firm no, firm no, no thank you. You don't have to do that. And then this is something that we did that I think has been a telltale part of most of my adult life, which is we just shot some things on spec. We shot some sketches and gave them to the executives that had said no to us. And we said, well, look at these, and what do you think? And when we shot 2 sketches, and immediately they hired us, and they were like, this is great. And we would do 2 sketches a week, and it was the worst show that ever existed. It was absolutely terrible. But from it, the host of the show was Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart hosted You Wrote It, You Watch It, so he got the Jon Stewart show, and we got the State, our sketch show. And then we never asked for permission from anybody. We just kept going.
Wow.
Still, yeah, I still don't ask for permission. Just start.
No.
Yeah.
Why start now?
Yeah.
Backing up just a little bit, while you were still in Oak Park as a teen, during dinner we shared that we both had mutual backgrounds as busboys and waiters and stuff. Where did you work?
I was, one of my main jobs was I was a busboy at Philander's. If anybody was ever at Philander's, thank you for yelling at me on those occasions. The rules at Philander's were if somebody said thank you, and you said you're welcome, you were instantly fired at Philander's. Because the answer to thank you at Philander's was my pleasure. And you had to say my pleasure. Also, when the chef would come in, you would say, good evening, chef. And if you said anything other than good evening, chef, to the chef, you were also fired. Philander's was deadly serious. And then one night, the men's room overflowed during a flood. And the manager said, I want you to take all of the old tablecloths and napkins and just go soak up the overflowed toilets in Philander's. And I think I started crying, and I said, I'm not going to do that. And then I cried, and I left. So they're probably still mad at me over there. And then I was in the basement under Winbury's. Does everybody know where J.B. Winbury's is? Did they drop the J.B. at one point? Now it's just Winbury's? Yeah. In the basement under Winbury's, I would do market research phone calls.
Telemarketing.
Everybody hated me so much. Yeah. I would call people up and be like, hey, we heard you're mad at American Airlines. Why? And then they'd say, like, Tom, I'm going to call you one day when you're having dinner. I hope you rot in hell. Yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. And that toughened me up, too. It was a good one, yeah. Winbury's basement. Yeah.
Young are good toughening us up. More recently, we're so familiar with you on screen, and I know you do script doctoring as well. As an old English teacher, I'm fascinated. Is there a common malady that people's scripts fall into?
Yeah. I would say of scripts that are getting made that need to be fixed, often they just do too much. You know, like a lot of people think that a good movie script should be like 120, 130 pages, and that's obsessive and insane. It should be about 100 pages or 105. And script doctoring, which we do here and there. Nowadays we write less movies that are more things that we love. You know, along the Night at Museum. Oh, that's why that clip was in there, if you didn't know that I wrote that scene. I thought it was a good companion piece to Monkey Torture, because it shows you some of the, obviously, clearly the obsessions that I have.
Did you want a monkey as a kid?
I did. In fact, I slept in a bed with, and my parents can attest, I had something like 16 different stuffed monkeys that I lined up next to me in order, and the littlest one was called Midge, and the biggest one was called Big George. And I would hide against the wall, and then it was Big George down to Midge were the 16 monkeys next to me.
Wow,
Yeah.
16 monkeys.
It was pretty specific, yeah. But luckily, I turned out fine.
Have there been projects that you turned down that you wished you might have accepted?
Yeah, I've almost never turned down any. If you've seen my film work, I've almost never turned down any role. Ever. But there was a brief period, I was out in Schaumburg making a movie called Eden Court, which is one of the worst films ever made by human beings. It's just terrible. It's me and Kimberly Williams Paisley, who's wonderful from Father of the Bride. And it seemed like it was going to turn out okay, and then I saw the movie, and it's really one of the worst movies I've ever seen. But while I was making that movie, I had a phone call to discuss the role of Meryl Streep's assistant in The Devil Wears Prada. And I remember I kind of blew it off, and I was like, oh, I was okay with the idea, but I wasn't super into it, and I kind of blew it off, and then I ended up not getting the offer for the role, which went to Dad, Stanley Tucci, Earth's all-time best puck. So, and then of course I saw the movie, and I'm like, what the hell was wrong with me? Why didn't I? Yeah. Anyway, so that'd be just about the only one. Oh no, there's one other role, Doug. This will be a good one. I'll tell it briefly, and I'll tell it in the most PG-rated version I can tell it. I got a call once. My agent called me, and they said, Martin Scorsese's casting director is very aware of you.
What does that mean?
And I was so excited. I was like, what? Of course. And they're like, Martin Scorsese is making a movie called The Wolf of Wall Street. And I'm like, you already had me. Let's keep talking. We're doing this. This sounds good. Me and Martin Scorsese, bros for life. And they're like, so the phone call is, Martin Scorsese's casting director really loves you. They're making Wolf of Wall Street. There's a role called Patrick the Butler. Take a look at it, and they want you to come in and read for it. And I said, done and done. I don't even need to read it, so you can confirm me. I'll definitely be there. This sounds great. Can't wait. See you then. Then I go back and I read the script, Doug. I read the whole script, and I'm trying to find when Patrick the Butler comes in. And what happens is that Leonardo DiCaprio is out of his apartment for a couple days, and he comes back in and catches his butler, Patrick the Butler, completely naked in an orgy with a whole bunch of guys. Just a big, crazy orgy that's happening. And Patrick the Butler's only line is, I'm so sorry. And then the next thing that happens is Leonardo DiCaprio hangs Patrick the Butler naked out the window over Fifth Avenue for like a while. And I remember thinking, oh, so this is what Martin Scorsese's casting director thinks is my perfect role. And that was a tough one.
This movie never got made.
It's called The Wolf of Wall Street.
Is it? I know. I didn't think I ever saw it.
And then, Doug, what made me so mad is that in the movie, Patrick, when they hang him out the window, he's got like a leather jacket on. And I was like, I could have done that. Anyway, yeah.
That's crazy.
Typecasting is sometimes just casting also, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little about the book.
Oh, so the book, I was in with my mother and my father, my sister, and some of my cousins, the Dohertys over there. I was in a castle in County Mayo called Turin Castle, which is really one of those Irish tower castle. It's more built as a fortress than for luxury. And I was shown, the owner of the castle showed me a shillelagh on the wall, and it was I'd never seen what a real Irish shillelagh looked like. When England had their boot on our neck, in Ireland, Irish people couldn't carry metal weapons. So they got really good at amazing clubs and sticks and fantastic fighting shillelaghs. And so I looked at the shillelagh, and I had one of those very rare moments where a very large idea came in a very short period of time, which is, what if this was the weapon that you had to carry to work as a police officer? And then why would you need to carry something like this? And so the whole book, I thought about, well, what if leprechauns are what I was always told leprechauns are, which is disgusting creatures who steal your stuff, and they exchange babies for logs, and if you get gold from them, it's probably got a curse on it. There's nothing upbeat about leprechauns and where I come from. And so I had the idea in about a couple of seconds of like a police officer for leprechauns, and then 2 years later the book was done in a blink of an eye.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, no, it was a full 2 years. It took a while. And then Ferdia proofread it. Thank you so much, my cousin Ferdia, who speaks Irish or Gaelic. Yeah.
You mentioned that the second book is almost complete.
The second book is done. The funny thing about writing a novel is you have your entire life to write your first novel. If anybody's familiar with the Spin Doctors, they had a record called Pocket Full of Kryptonite. It sold 4 million copies like in a day because you have your whole life to write your first record. So the first book I had my whole life to write, that's this book, and then the second book I had a year. And I've just wrapped it up right now.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you write, I have not bought mine yet,
Yeah.
Do you write cinematically, like it could be a movie at some point?
You know, most of this novel was written for me to escape from movie writing for a little bit. So it was to take a bit of a break. On the second night at the museum movies, something happened that made me want to take a break from movie writing for a little bit. It wasn't complicated, it was just this, which is by hands. Has everybody seen Night at the Museum Battle of the Smithsonian? Lennon, Wedren, nice. Yes, a lot of folks. Does everybody remember the giant octopus that's in the movie? Lennon, Wedren does, nice. Mullins, yes. Does everybody know when giant octopi used to exist in the world? Never. They've never existed.
That's what I was going to say.
There's no such thing. There is a giant squid. So I had to sit at the movie Night at the Museum next to the director of the Smithsonian, and she at some point leaned over and said, "Why did you put a giant octopus in the movie? There's no such thing, and we have a giant squid." To which my writing partner and I were like, no, check the script. I'll send it to you right now. It says giant squid. It's always been a giant squid. It was supposed to be a giant squid. And then we asked the director of the film, we're like, "Hey, Sean, why did you change it from giant squid in the script, which exists, to giant octopus, which has never existed and will never exist?" And his response, it was 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, and then he said, "I don't remember." And I was like, okay, I'm going to go write a novel as fast as I can. Because the rest of my life getting flack about giant octopi on the internet is not what I can't handle it. I get hate mail every day.
Do you get letters from people with crazy...
I get letters. If I get letters, they're mostly upbeat.
Yeah.
I don't get as many letters as my wife, who's in Bull Durham, but she gets way more letters. But and played Patty Duke in played young Patty Duke in the Patty Duke story. But I get some letters, Doug. Yes. Yeah.
That's cool. Now the main character, Ronan Boyle, is a 14-year-old, and you say he's somewhat derived from your personality.
There's a lot about Ronan Boyle that. When you start writing things, mostly things come from your experience. For example, the Frumpkins are here. Christian Frumpkin, yeah. Do you know that in the original Night at the Museum movie, Larry's name is Larry Frumpkin? No, that was in the first draft. Yeah. And I was told it was a little too goofy by the head of the studio. I apologize. Yeah, but it was always your name. I know. But so in Ronan Boyle he's got some food allergies, for sure. He's got severe claustrophobia. He's got social anxiety. He has imaginary conversations with Dame Judi Dench. All of these are things, just things from my life.
We're to assume that these are characteristics you have?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure, yeah.
Really?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. The panic stuff, the social anxiety.
Social anxiety I'm not seeing.
No, I know. You don't see it because I'm Irish. Yeah. But every time I'm doing something like this, I'm just quietly dying inside. And then that's fine. And we press on and we don't talk about it. And then we just,
People always say that the three prevailing funniest groups in American culture have been Jews, African Americans, and the Irish. Why would you say the Irish are so funny?
Well, there's an interesting detail that the manager of my first comedy group, The State, was also the manager of the Marley family, like Ziggy Marley, all the descendants of Bob Marley. And he said, Irish people and Jamaicans are basically exactly the same. They're from these little islands, and they've had somebody's boot on their neck for a long time, and it turned them really funny. And I thought that was true. But I think more than even just Irish people being funny, I think Chicago, I don't know anybody from Chicago that's not pretty funny. Yeah. And I assume it's because some days it's April 15th and you get 2 feet of snow. And you're like, this is some dumb shit. We gotta, yeah.
We would like to open it up also if people in the house have questions for Tom. Anybody got something? Yes.
I'm sure Neil Simon would agree that you are the best ever Felix Unger.
Thank you, I agree too.
Are you going to do any more of that?
Some more Felix Unger? You know what, I would say I could maybe do Felix Unger on tour. If we do it on tour, that would be fun. But that was I was very nervous about taking on the mantle of Felix Unger. It seemed like a bad idea at the time. And then I was walking to the very first table read to do the show, and Gary Marshall, who himself had approved me for the role, came over, and I saw a parking space that had Gary Marshall's name on it, and I thought it was a goof. I'm like, Gary Marshall's not going to come to a table read of a pilot. And then a couple minutes later, he pulled up, and he came over and he gave me a huge hug, and he's like, "You're killing it, kid. You're killing this." And then we became friends for the rest of his life, and it made me feel really confident that it was an okay thing to try, at least. And I'm also the 5th Felix Unger, and it's not like I was 3. Yeah. So.
Two things. One, how did the Friends appearance weigh in your career, and then what was that like? And the other thing was, what percentage of 911 was
Sure. The first part of the question was, what was it like to play Randal, Joey's hand twin, on Friends? And the first thing that was amazing about it was that it was just an offer. I didn't have to audition at all. I got a call. I'd been on a show called Jessie a couple times with Christina Applegate, and so Marta Kaufman, or one of the Friends creators, just said, "Oh, bring in this guy for Joey's hand twin. He's funny and you'll like him, and he's not a pain." So I went in and did the show, and the one thing that I remember is I sat down at the first table read for Friends, and literally not one of the friends said hello to me. None of them. It was astonishing. And I sat next to Jennifer Aniston, and there's Matthew Perry, and Matt LeBlanc and everything, and they were making $1 million a week at the time. And they were the angriest 6 people I've ever been around. They were livid about everything, which, in case you're ever wondering, like, hey, does $1 million a week make you feel like you're walking on bubbles? No, apparently not. Later on, I maintained friendships with Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, Courtney Cox. Were all very sweet to me, and we became friends later, but at the time on the show, during that run, nobody wanted to be anywhere around anybody, and everybody was so mad. Wow. And then, funny detail later, we're filming this, right? Can you cover the camera for 1 second? You can turn it back on. And I was like, "Oh, you're kidding, right?" And they're like, no, life's too short. Yeah.
That's great.
Yep. Oh, improvisation. On Reno 911, a little detail is it seems very improvised. But the secret of Reno 911 is that Ben Garant, my partner with the vest and the dark sunglasses, my movie writing partner, we outlined every scene, and we always knew, if nothing else, we at least knew the ending of everything we were ever doing. So while it seems random, that's because the dialogue is mostly improvised, but we weren't just like, hey, let's go to a parking lot and like make up some goofs. Yeah, there was always a little more structure than you see. Yeah. My friend.
When you were in 17 again playing Ned Gold, how did you prepare for that role for the big geek?
How did I prepare for Ned Gold? Ned Gold is the guy in 17 again who sleeps in a land speeder, and he's a very nerdy person. And the way I prepared for that was my life. And the only thing I knew that, like, so when we were doing the movie, and the director was really open to things that I wanted to do, which was very sweet. So I said, like, in the first scene where you see me and Matthew sitting and eating cereal, I was like, what if I have, like, elf ears on? And he's like, why would you do that? And I'd be like, well, because I ordered them in the mail, and I just wanted to see if they fit. You know, but so I was like, I just want to make it as weird as I can every chance I have. And they literally let every single weird thing I did in 17 again is in the movie, which was awfully sweet, yeah.
That's cool. Other questions, yeah?
I know that you have some projects where you cross over with your folks from the state. Are there any future plans for any reunion shows at all?
A state show. So we, the state, which is the group that we formed in 1988, and we're all still very, very close in all the good and bad ways sometimes, because we, you know, we're like a band. We, you know, sometimes it's really fun, sometimes we fight. I've been pitching for a long time that we should do a live show from Washington Square Park, which is where we started in Greenwich Village, and do like a sort of a rattle and hum sketch show. I think at some point it'll happen. It's just there's always like, no matter how many times you like think you've put out fires between one or two members of the group, it's like Fleetwood Mac. There's always then something else, you just put out that fire and then another one comes up. It's crazy. But we also love each other a lot, and at some point I think it'll happen. The blessing and the curse of the state never doing stuff together is that the vast majority of the state is crazy successful and so busy, which is very strange. But like most of the group, like, has either, you know, like Mike Showalter, the guy who in the blonde wig who's walking the orphans on stage, that's the director of The Big Sick. You know, like the state like has weirdly more credits than any group. It's very strange. And when we get together, we fight a lot. Yeah. Let's hear.
You were mentioning earlier about like roles that you wish you'd taken, and so I was just thinking, like, because I remember like being surprised to see like this tiny little role in Memento. So like, what exactly makes you look at the script and say, I'm going to do this?
Any script I look at, I say, I'm going to do this one. Because it's a script, and I just always assume this is the end of my career, no matter what it is. I'm like, well, this will be the last thing. The funny thing is that Memento is the first movie I ever auditioned for, ever. So I read for Christopher Nolan for that movie. And it's also very weird because my character says, I have 6 sentences in the movie, but they're only one sentence, 6 times. So all I say in that entire movie is, it's a test, Sammy. That's all I say. And when it's so weird to go to an audition where you like get ready, you get dressed, and you're cleaned up, and you drive for a half hour, and you park, and you go in, and there's Christopher Nolan in the suit, and you say, it's a test, Sammy. Like, you're like, that was a weird use of a day, but I got that role, which was really fun, and that's the reason I'm in The Dark Knight Rises also, is because he thought it would be funny if I'm basically the same person in those 2 films. But no, the answer is, as a person who's both in the new Puppet Master and the new reboot of Critters, I'm trying to think of a movie I would say no to offhand.
Do you ever want to try something against your type, like do Hamlet or Oedipus?
I've always thought I would love, one day I would love to come to the Festival Theater in Oak Park and do Richard. Do Richard III. I think I would crush that.
Boy, that would be something.
What's that? But I, who was not made for sportive tricks, to caper in a lady's bedchamber to the lascivious pleasings of a lute, I, who is thrust into this world scarcely half made up, and so misshapen that dogs do bark at me as I pass.
Wow.
I can keep going, but we'll leave it like that.
Would you do the Hunchback and the whole 9 yards?
I'd do something weird for sure. Yeah. For sure I'd do something weird, but no, I would love to do some serious stuff. I feel like that part of my career is coming at some point when people take me seriously. Unless that maybe is never coming, and I just become Leslie Nielsen, which is also classy problems. I'm happy to do that. Yes. Could I ever do a soap opera? I can't see how I couldn't. I'm a good fake doctor, which I feel like soap operas have a lot of those, don't they? Yeah. I could probably do a soap opera, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get the idea from Instagram that you and Weird Al are close friends.
Mm-hmm.
What is it like being friends with Weird Al?
What is it like being friends with Weird Al Yankovic? This is a weird one because generally they say, don't meet your heroes because they will disappoint you a lot. So the way the story begins is I was at Staples Office Supplies in Hollywood the minute they opened on a Sunday morning at 11 a.m. And there was two people looking at the wall of printer toner to see what kind of toner they needed for their printer. And one was this person with this crazy mane of hair next to me. And I turned and out of the corner of my eye, there's no mistaking. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just have to ask, are you Weird Al Yankovic? And I had the mustache at the time. And he said, yes, are you Lieutenant Dangle? And I said, yes, I am. And then, totally kidding, I said, should we just decide to be best friends for life? Total joke, just some funny thing that you say. I went home, we exchanged emails or numbers or something, and I went home and I told my wife, Jenny, I said, honey, sit down. I just met Weird Al Yankovic, and I've invited him to dinner next week, which is I did. I was like, do you want to come over for dinner? And she was like, I don't know who this is. And it turned out that it was an easy thing to happen because he's really honestly one of the, when he got his star on the Walk of Fame a couple months, 6 months, 8 months ago, the speeches were Dr. Demento and then me, which felt really cool. So yeah, I never thought that I'd grow up and be a person who goes on vacation with Weird Al Yankovic. But it's possible. It's very possible.
That's cool.
I have two questions. First one is for the book. What were your inspirations as other authors of the book?
The biggest one by far is obviously all the works of Douglas Adams. When I was around 12-ish, I read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it completely blew my mind. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my whole life. And I thought, one day I could, if I really put my mind to it, I could write something that's inspired by Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or any of them. Or So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul. And then also Kurt Vonnegut, Bluebeard, Galapagos, all of the.
Did you read a lot as a kid?
No. The main thing that happened as a kid was that my dad, Tim Lennon, Dad, are you right there? Dad?
I think he just stepped up.
He ducked out?
Yeah.
My dad, Tammy Tucci's in the lobby. So my dad got a little bored by the event. I was about to tell a story that would make him cry. This is hilarious. He really is not here? Wow.
I think he just...
That's okay. God bless. Stanley Tucci's in the lobby. So my dad, every single night of our childhood, my dad sat in between my room and my sister's room, Megan, who's right there. Megan, where are you? Oh, right there. And he would read to us every night. And so we very early got, To Kill a Mockingbird and The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and a lot of big sprawling
really
books.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was...
Is Megan older than you?
My sister's so much older than me, it's not even funny. Like, my parents were having babies, and like, they're still going to have another baby that far after my sister. No, my sister is, I look much older than her, but she's just a tiny bit older than me, just by a little bit. Yeah, we're almost Irish twins.
My second question.
Yes.
How many candlesticks did you get for your wedding present?
How many candlesticks did I get for wedding?
Because you got to figure out Bill Durham.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. Candlesticks always good. Find out where they're registered. Hey, Dad, I was just telling a sweet story about you, but you missed it. It's all right.
Here it comes.
Yeah. Anyway, he read to me. This guy read to us every night of our entire lives. Doing voices, doing bits. He would fill in the whole thing. It was like we had our own subscription to Audible, except it was our dad. Yeah. And he,
That's so
yeah,
cool.
it was really cool. Yeah.
I see it's 8:45. Last question. Who has the last question?
It seemed like, I don't know how you guys kept a straight face when you made Reno 911, but it just, the casting was perfect, and it just seemed like you guys, it was a lot of fun making that. How did you keep a straight face?
Reno 911 for sure was the best job I've ever had in my whole life. One of the reasons that you can't see us laughing that much is because of the mustache. I'm totally serious. Like, the mustache, if you just kind of bite your lip with a mustache, it looks like you're mad, even though you're probably laughing. And we laughed a lot on that show. It also, like, I would get up every day at 5 a.m. and then be home at 11. But it was a thrill to do it. And then it was one of those shows every night that I would get home from Reno 911. I would take a shower just because I was, like, been in fights and had gravel thrown at me all day. And it was one of those jobs where I didn't realize how many cuts I had on my body until soap contacted them. So almost every night after Reno 911 was like the scene in Silkwood, just going like, ah! Ah! Yeah. But best job I've ever had.
Was that a blonde wig, or did you dye
No,
it?
that was just highlights, yeah. Just highlights.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, I got a tiny detail. I got to sit in, if you're ever wondering, the helicopter that the president flies in, during the George W. Bush administration, we did a USO tour in character as the Reno 911 crew, and they took us to where they keep all the president's helicopters. Wow. And I got to sit in the shorts in the president's seat on the president's helicopter. So some of my thigh DNA is still in there. Yeah.
There was one more question
one?
over
Yeah, sure.
here. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, your roots are in theater, and you talked about Shakespeare stuff. Would you ever seriously consider, like, writing for theater, or doing...
I have. I've written a play, at least one play, that never went anywhere. And then I've just, Ben and I recently, we wrote and pitched the entire Night at the Museum musical, and then we got fired off of it immediately, which was a bummer, because we felt like we really nailed it. But then we've just written the book for the Trading Places musical, and some of the songs, which will be coming to, hopefully, Broadway at some point. These things take time, as the Smiths say.
What a thrill.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And you heard it here.
You heard it here first.
Well, Tom, I can't tell you what a thrill this has been for us to have you here, and to have a person of your significance who has fond memories of our community, who still loves and appreciates what we do here, how we are, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. We've been friends for a long time. I appreciate it. And thank you, Frank. If you haven't been to the Oak Park River Forest Historical Society, it's magnificent. It's by the old Aldi. Can we call it that? Yeah.
Yeah.
On Lake 129? 129 Lake Street.
Yeah.
It's magnificent.
Coming soon, the Lieutenant Dangle
Yes.
costume on a mannequin.
No joke.
And now, in the lobby, we have books for sale, and he will sign them. It's a wonderful thing.